All right, Regis, do you have any questions for us to start off?
Uh, you know, any questions that came to mind right this minute? No, I don't have anything right this minute. Something may come up along the way. you know.
Cool. Well, I've got a few topics that we can cover and kind of go over a bit. So again, I want to encourage you, Regis, and anybody to keep lists of the questions that come up because I know things pop into your head in your day to day when you're in front of some equipment. Maybe it's something that's not super consequential, something that's relatively minor, but if you want to build your knowledge base, bring those questions here, and I'm happy to talk about them here. I am recording this. I'm going to share this with the sales team then afterwards. We do have Jerome and Kristy with us to help out a little bit. So first thing I want to go over is an email was sent by one of our consultants, Randy Densberger, and I thank you, Randy, for providing some questions for us. Randy is asking about the ecobee thermostat with the sensor. So I've heard this talked about quite a bit, this whole sensor thing, okay? And just understand the sensor is not a magic piece. It's not going to make everything perfect, okay? All it does is it creates another data point to average out temperatures. So if you have part of the house that's too warm, the other part of the house that's comfortable, you put a sensor in one part and the thermostat in another, they can average out. Now, in most cases with a thermostat, whether it's the ecobee or any others, you can tell it to read from that sensor, or you can tell it to average across those sensors. But either way, it's not going to make it perfect. If there's temperature differential in the house, it's not a perfect solution by a long shot. It can help, but it's not a perfect solution. Jerome, anything to add to that thought?
Yeah, so along with what Eric Nowak said, he's absolutely right. The other things you might want to look at in the customer's house if they're talking about temperature differences is making sure there's no registers blocked in that room. A lot of times people will put like furniture or pictures, whatever the case may be, in front of either supplies or returns, and that'll be the thing that's stopping that room from cooling down or heating up. And it could also just be the room's insulation as well. But it's definitely not a 100% fix by giving them a sensor.
Yeah, for sure. Balancing dampers are the other thing to look for on a piece of ductwork to see if there's a lever on there, if there's some kind of a way to adjust that airflow. That's another potential as well. So then the rest of Randy's question went on. After asking about the sensor, he asked, do you need to have the ecobee set up for a two-stage when you have a two-stage furnace? And the truth of that is no, you do not need a two-stage thermostat with a two-stage furnace. You do need a two-stage thermostat with a two-stage air conditioner. Okay, that's an important requirement. And you also have to have a two-stage furnace if you're going to use a two-stage air conditioner. Two-stage air conditioners are a fantastic benefit. They're quieter, they dehumidify better. Overall, it's just a really, really nice upgrade for a homeowner. But they do require the two-stage thermostat. They do require the two-stage furnace. So backing up to the original question, a two-stage furnace can stage on its own. What that means is the circuit board, and actually Carrier's is probably one of the best at this. They have a proprietary algorithm that they use that tells it when to go from the first to the second stage. So it's done in a smart way as well. When it starts out, it's going to run in low stage when it's set up working with a single stage thermostat. And keeping in mind that a thermostat is really just a complicated switch. It just sends power to different places to make different things happen. So when we have a single stage thermostat, it simply tells the furnace, I need some heat. Furnace comes on, starts to provide that heat. When the furnace is doing the staging itself for a two-stage scenario, it starts in low stage and it runs for about 16 minutes from my memory, about 16 minutes. If it can satisfy the thermostat within that 16 minutes, it stays in low stage the whole time. If it can't, then it goes up to high stage. What it does with Carrier, what's special about that is it's got this tracking thing where it keeps track of those cycles, the last 10 cycles. And if it sees that the system is having to go into high stage on multiple cycles, then it's going to shorten that low fire or go directly to high fire. So in essence, it's sort of in a dumb way. It's not really informed or smart. In a dumb way, it's figuring out that the outdoor temperature is really cold and it's having to work harder to keep up with that temperature. So the advantage of a two-stage thermostat is it is not dumb. It's got the added information of the temperature in the room and how much and how fast that temperature is changing. So when a two-stage thermostat sees that the temperature is changing fast enough, it's going to stay in low stage even longer. So it maximizes that benefit of that two-stage air furnace. It's going to hold that first stage and just keep running as long as the temperature is rising at the right temperature, or at the right rate, at the right speed. It's going to stay there, keep running, fill the house with more heat, more comfortably at a lower airflow and a lower volume. So it's quieter and more comfortable all the way around. And just keeping in mind, two-stage furnaces are really about comfort. It's really any two-stage equipment. It's really about comfort. It doesn't necessarily increase the efficiency. It increases the comfort, makes you more comfortable in the home. So the rest of the question here is, so just backing up real briefly then, the Carrier two-stage furnaces can either stage themselves with a single stage, or they can operate as a two-stage control. When we get up to the MN7, the modulating unit, that can do the same thing. But if you hook up a single stage control to a modulating, an MN7, and meaning an Infinity 98, you're losing almost all the good benefits of that system that you're paying for. So it really makes sense to put an Infinity control on an MN7, especially. Truly on all of them, all Infinity equipped, all Infinity equipment is going to work better with an Infinity control. So keeping in mind, in terms of Infinity, that only with an Infinity furnace to start, do you have the option of using an Infinity control? And it's a really good idea to do that. But if you don't have that Infinity furnace to start, you absolutely cannot use an Infinity control on anything. It has to be with a Carrier Infinity level furnace. There's 3 different ones that we offer.
So Eric, yeah, just backing up. So
yeah,
if a customer is making an investment on, you know, a unit of an Infinity level unit, you know, they would need to, I mean, it highly encourage them to get the Infinity controller versus the regular standard. They won't be able to maximize the use of what they paying for. It only makes sense. Is that what
correct.
I'm? Okay.
Yeah. The Infinity control gives them all the benefits of that unit that they bought. And if you don't use an Infinity control, it will still work. It'll still be a great furnace, but they'll lose some of those additional comfort benefits that they get with the Infinity control, among others, as well as others.
Okay. The other Eric, was with the two-stage thermostat. So you can have a two-stage furnace and a one-stage AC. That doesn't
Absolutely.
necessarily require a two-stage thermostat. If you
correct. If you,
okay.
In that scenario that you're describing, Regis, if you have a two-stage furnace, a single-stage air conditioner, any control will work with that.
Understood.
So
okay.
A single stage, 2 stage is better, but single stage will absolutely work in that scenario. What other questions have you got, Regis?
Well, I mean, so in that scenario, it will still do what it's supposed to do as far as the ramp up and stages. It will still act as a 2-speed furnace.
It will,
even
yes.
though yeah, okay. I just making sure with that. Now with a
Go ahead.
With a 2-stage AC and a 2-stage furnace, it is mandatory to have a 2-stage thermostat because okay.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. If you didn't, Regis, if it didn't have a 2-stage thermostat, the air conditioner would only be able to work as a single stage. So again, you'd lose that benefit. So right. When you connect a very basic thermostat with a better quality furnace, meaning a performance or better, the biggest thing that you lose is that enhanced dehumidification. So any better thermostat, a premium thermostat, all the way up to an Infinity control, meaning a Prestige, IAQ, any of the better thermostats, and you can do this research yourself, see if it has dehumidification control. That's a very, very valuable benefit to the customer to have that ability to improve their humidity control. I've got a furnace at home that does this, and when it's engaged, it works fantastic. When it's not engaged, if I forget, and it's complicated, so I'm not going to go into details, but if it's not set up to work, it makes a big difference. The humidity builds up in my house surprisingly fast. And when this enhanced dehumidification, and essentially it's just adjusting the speed of the fan in the furnace, when that's working right, it really makes a big difference as far as the amount of humidity that's left in the home after it runs. So it makes a lot of sense to go with that better thermostat when somebody is doing better equipment, when they're doing performance or higher equipment.
Okay, is that in our pricing model? Is the two-stage thermostat, is it kind of marked differently?
Yep.
In our pricing?
Yeah. So the way that
Okay.
that's designated, Regis, it'll say 1H, 1C means one
Okay.
heat, one cool, or 2H, 2C, 2 heat, 2 cool.
Okay, I think I've seen that. Yeah, I believe I've seen it. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Here's where it gets a little tricky, is there are certain thermostats that come in 1H, 1C, but they also come in 2H, 2C, and they'll look identical. It's really hard to tell the difference between them without finding the exact model number and or having the knowledge to understand what the difference is. So it's very, very similar looking, but the functions are different. And just as an aside, the other thing you might run into is home stores sell thermostats that look very, very similar, again, to the ones that we offer. But know that there's a big difference between the ones that are sold in home stores and the professional versions. One of the biggest ones is when you buy in a home store, it has a 1-year warranty. The ones that we install, if a service guy does it, has 5 years parts warranty. When we install it as part of the system, it goes to a 10-year parts warranty. So that's one of the big differences. But beyond that, it's the same case. It looks the same from the outside, but the internals are not the same on these home store brands as opposed to the professional variety. There's a lot more, there's more setup that can be done and should be done, will be done by the service guys and the installers with the home, with a proper one, with a proper style thermostat. A lot of people are in love with their Nest thermostats, so be real careful and tread lightly with this. But Nest thermostats are a lot of problems. Service guys do not like them. They create a lot of problems. The hardware is not real sturdy. Essentially what it comes to is Honeywell has been making thermostats since thermostats were made. Basically, they invented them over 100 years ago. Nest is just software engineers or computer engineers who decided they were going to create their own thermostat. And it's got a really cool unboxing experience, and it's real sexy looking on your wall, but they're crappy. They're crappy hardware, and a lot of people find that out. So I just caution you to be careful, because some techie people get really bought into that, and you don't want to offend them by telling them how shitty that they, or what a bad decision they made. You know, that's not a good thing necessarily.
Roger that.
We can tread lightly there with it. Okay. Regis, I'm curious, did you get a look at Jerome's newsletter that he sent out? I see we have Chelsea in here as well. Chelsea, welcome.
You know what?
Sorry.
I apologize. I did not get a chance to actually review the newsletter from Jerome, and I'll definitely, that'll be on my to do list here, certainly.
So there's some pretty good stuff there that he included, you know, and understand that Jerome is coming at this from the perspective of the things that they see, the higher level things that they see that create problems down the road for the installers, and things that you guys can do as comfort consultants to help avoid these problems. And a big part of this is proper duct sizing. Proper duct sizing. That is the end, be all and end all. As I've taught all of you, when it comes to sizing, you know, we can say this is what should be there. We can say this is what was there. But at the end of the day, if the ductwork can't support the airflow needed for that system, it's going to be a problem no matter what. And older systems could compensate more readily. Older low efficiency systems could work when they struggled a little bit. Now, they were stealing more efficiency while they were doing that, but they would work. Modern high efficiencies don't work well when the ductwork is not set properly. So it's really important that you do your very best to measure that out. If you have questions about that, jump in and ask Jerome or Terry or Dave or one of the other installers. They can definitely help you out and give you some clues, things to look for. But at the end of the day, counting the registers is your one of your best things. You know, measuring the trunk lines is good, but counting the registers, all the registers in the house, and knowing how many there are is going to give you a really good idea of what the system can handle. Besides knowing what's there. Yeah.
So the I'm sorry, the duct, as far as the duct, what comes out, that's the cylinder. I'm just making this maybe a silly question. I should know this by now, probably, but that's the round cylinder sizing, as far as if it's a 4-inch, 5-inch duct. You know.
So what you're talking about there, Regis, I believe is the flue piping, your exhaust piping.
That's it. Yeah.
So that does bear also, that's also important. I was referring to the duct sizing, meaning the air duct sizing for the flow of air. But flue pipe sizing comes into play as well. So it's important to give accurate measurements so that the guys know what kind of fittings or adapters they need. If the sizing of the flue pipe is going to change, and remembering all of our furnaces leave the furnace with a 4-inch, all the 80% furnaces leave the furnace with a 4-inch flue pipe. Yeah. If that's going to change to a larger size, that adapter should be at the highest point possible in the house. So if you're down in a basement, we want to try to get it all the way up by the ceiling if possible. We want as little of that big pipe to come down to the furnace as possible. We want to keep it going up there as the 4-inch whenever possible, as much as possible or as high as possible in the house. Okay. So sizing that, I do have some documents that I can share with you all regarding flue pipe sizing, the ways to measure it. It can be a little tricky because the measurement is really across the cross section. It's kind of hard to do that when it's in place. There is a measurement you can use to wrap it that it'll convert to show you what the actual size of it is. Most of the time they're fairly standard, but there are some oddball ones where they'll have a 5-inch or something like this that's less commonly seen, or a 7-inch or something that we don't see a lot of. But those are the ones that are the most important, that you get the right adapters so that the guys can get the job done in one day and have everything they need to get there and get it done with. So a lot of this detail is included in the newsletter. So I'm going to encourage you guys to go ahead and take a look at that. Look at the newsletter that Jerome sent out and check out some of those details. Chelsea, do you have any questions for us?
No. So I'm in a parking lot with a lawnmower going on in the background, so that's why I'm just been listening in and taking notes and stuff.
No problem. So I am recording this, and I will post it to YouTube and then send it out to you all, so you can watch it another time if you'd like.
Perfect.
Cool. What other questions have you got? Anything, Regis?
Well, Eric, Jerome, I think Jerome was very helpful just with me. I think I reached out to him yesterday, and I had a situation with in a customer's home where they had roughly 1,200 square feet in the home, and however, they were not getting enough airflow as far as AC upstairs where they sleep on the second level. And they currently they had a really an 8-year-old AC that there was an accident. They house sits on the corner, and there was an accident that it hit their AC, and they had to get it replaced. So that AC is a 2.5 ton Lennox model, but they said prior to the accident they just were not getting enough airflow upstairs. So I didn't know if it was ductworks, the way the house was constructed, or so I think Jerome just kind of assisted me, maybe just stepping up maybe to a 2-stage furnace a 2-stage furnace alongside maybe just upping it to possibly from 2.5 to 3 ton to it will give some improvement. Can't guarantee, but it would probably improve. Am I right on that, Jerome?
I don't remember this specific one. Explain to me again. You said there was an accident.
Yeah. There was an accident on their corner. They live on the corner of their block.
Mm-hmm.
I probably didn't explain that part to you, but I don't know if you were the one I talked to. Maybe it might have been somebody else. Maybe I talked to someone else. But
yeah, this doesn't ring a bell to me.
It sounds like the crux of this, real quick, the crux of this sounds like is that they're not getting enough cool air upstairs on the second floor is really what's happening here.
Okay, so there was a time where everything was fine, and then you said there was an accident, and then now there's not enough cooling on the second floor.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting. Yeah,
what was the accident?
This was an accident on the corner, I think, involving police and stuff.
Somebody hit the condensing unit, Jerome. They ran into the condensing unit.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They ran into it. Yeah, and so that's under investigation at the moment. As far as with that going, but meanwhile, they were sharing with me the resident of the home was just sharing with me that they were not getting enough airflow. I'm not sure. Are you identified as RJ too, Jerome?
No.
Okay, so it wasn't you. Okay, I didn't talk to you. Okay.
Yeah, no, I don't remember this one. Yeah, for sure. Because most likely, if they're not getting cooling, I mean, we know hot air rises. If they're not getting cooling on the second floor after that accident, and it was fine before, I would say probably something is wrong with the condenser. But most likely, my advice would never be to just go ahead and upsize the unit. That's not going to be. There'd be other determining factors that would have to be verified first before you would just upsize the AC. It's almost always going to be airflow. So yeah, it's probably just going to be airflow and insulation upstairs, stuff like that. But yeah, I don't remember talking to you about this particular one. But if their AC got hit, it could be the compressor that's not really being efficient anymore. For sure, it could be.
Okay, it's only 8 years old. The equipment is only 8 years old, and it's a 2.5 ton AC.
So Regis, thinking back to the Explorer, what's the first most important question you have to ask in the Explorer? What's the first most important question to learn when you do your Explorer?
See, I'm going brain dead now.
How long have you lived in the home?
Yeah.
Now we know what their experience is. We know how much value we can put on their words. And now our next question we ask is, what temperature do you like the thermostat when you're cooling? And then the next question is, does it reach that temperature on really hot days? Yeah. So if their thermostat on the first floor is getting to the right temperature, but it's not cool enough upstairs, as Jerome alluded to, that's almost certainly an airflow delivery issue. And in that case, a bigger condensing unit or more capacity is going to make that situation worse because the air conditioner will shut off quicker, less cool air gets upstairs then. So the true answer to that is to check that, to test the airflow, go up to the room where it's insufficient or rooms, have the fan running and check the airflow at those registers, and then check a similar register down on the first floor. I can tell you this is almost always the case. So upsizing is nearly never the answer to getting cool air upstairs. It's usually the reverse. So be very cautious about that. So once we determine if it's an airflow issue, then the solutions are AeroSeal, possibly damper balancing. They can run the fan on the on switch rather than the auto position to get the air to circulate and balance out more upstairs. It's incremental and it really will depend on some other factors as well. But again, don't jump to upsizing. That's what homeowners often will tell you, and they're often wrong. I can tell you that without question.
Okay, that's good information. Okay.
Really important. So it's measuring that airflow. It can be done with a device. I've got a little airflow meter. I showed it around here. You're welcome to check it out next time you're in here. I keep it in my drawer. But it's a little anemometer. I can send you the link to if you're interested in it. I think it's about $75 or so for one of these things. connects to your phone, and it gives real numbers of airflow measurement. You can involve the homeowner in that, have them help you check the airflow, and see, is it better? Is it more or less in that room that doesn't get enough? It's almost always going to be less airflow. That's the problem. It's not getting the air to that room. And again, sometimes AeroSeal is the answer, but not always. It might not be the right answer.
Got it.
Okay. Any other questions on this subject?
That's all I have.
Jerome, is there anything else you'd add to that?
No, I would just, do the heater, the cooling load for the house. That's what's going to be the size you need. And if it's going to be like air delivery problems, like he said, like Eric said, it's going to be airflows, not going to be necessarily upsizing the unit.
Okay. Yeah, because my load calculations did come up for only 2.5 ton. That's what my load calculation came up, so I didn't know if upgrading it to a 3 ton, like you said, that could make it worse.
Were you saying it was 1,200 square feet, Regis?
Yes, that's correct.
So I'm thinking more like 2 ton, frankly, unless it's really bad insulation. I mean, my house is a little bit bigger than that, and I've got a 2 ton in it, so 2 ton works all the time.
Yeah, sometimes those things will come into consideration, like high ceilings and stuff like that. But I mean, if your square footage is saying 2 tons or 2.5 tons, that's the size you need. It's going to be other things that are coming into play that are making it inefficient.
It was coming in at 27,000 a cooling load, so that's a little over 2 tons.
So it's right in between. A little bit of work there. So what I'll tell you though, Regis, is in some cases, and I'm not saying this is the solution for this homeowner, but in some cases, reducing that to a two ton as opposed to a 2.5 will get the unit to run longer, and it may get the air up there where it's supposed to go without too much other change. But it varies. It varies a bit.
Okay.
So what I'm going to close with here briefly, and I'm going to plan to do on our next tech time, we'll talk more about heat exchangers, because this is going to start coming up more and more as we progress into the fall season and the summer season, or the winter season, I should say. So obviously heat exchangers are the most important safety feature on a furnace. It's that envelope that keeps the exhaust gas separate from the house air and doesn't let it leak together. If there's a defect in that heat exchanger, and it's not always a crack, if that heat exchanger is failed, that unit is condemnable and it should not be operated anymore, and it's dangerous. So once our guys condemn a heat exchanger, there's something special that happens here, and this is an ABC thing. We back up what they say 100%, meaning if one of our technicians diagnoses a failed heat exchanger, and then we agree to replace that furnace for the homeowner, they've got the right to ask for a visual inspection when that unit is pulled out. And we back up that diagnosis, meaning if the failure cannot be produced or demonstrated with the heat exchanger, and it's in fact not failed, then that homeowner gets their furnace at no charge. And if the technician was an honest mistake on the technician's part, they can pay for that furnace and they can keep their job. If it was dishonest, they won't work here anymore. And I'll tell you, it did happen once back when I was the service manager. He was a really good guy, and he just made a really dumb mistake. And the stupid part was the heat exchanger was in fact failed, but he provided a picture that was not of that heat exchanger. It was one that he got online. And he was purposely being deceptive, and we had to let him go because of that. But this is an important part to talk to the homeowner about, that we stand behind this 100%. We verify these diagnoses. We spend a lot of money and a lot of time training our guys to understand how to diagnose heat exchangers and failures that come about with them. So if they do anything that's not legitimate, they're not going to be here long, and that homeowner will get a free furnace out of the deal. So that's how strongly we stand behind that. And the reason for this, guys, is that there is a real potential for fraud here, and it's something that does happen at other companies, where they will indicate that the heat exchanger is bad when it's really not. I've personally seen it before from other companies, and it's something that we will not stand for. So it's something that you can get ahead of when a homeowner has concerns, or you can tell that they're being a little suspicious about the diagnosis. Let them know that it's 100%. We will absolutely have that technician come back out and show you where the failure is on that furnace. And if we can't find it, if we can't show it to you, then it's going to be a no charge. So that's how strongly we take that position, because we know that it is potential for fraud out there. We don't want anybody to ever get the idea that that's what we're trying to pull. All right. So we'll go into a little bit more detail about the whole heat exchanger thing in our next Tech Time in 2 weeks. Give you one last chance. If anybody, is anybody with us have any questions?
I just wanted to say super quick, if there's any topics you guys want to be discussed in the newsletter, just feel free to shoot me an email and let me know. Because I just pick topics that, Kristy or Beth come to me. But if you guys have anything that you run into that you want to see discussed more, just let me know and I can post it.
Okay.
Right on.
Thank you.
Yeah, open forum, guys. So we're here for you. We're here to help you get better and learn more about the technical aspects of all this stuff we're doing. Okay, let's get out there and make the most of the day. We got a couple of warm days here. Let's get everything we can and let's get this thing rolling. Have a good one, everybody.
All right. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
Thanks.